Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Crow's Greenfoot Lessons. Today we're going to be creating part 3 of the zombie survivor game. In the past we've been able to shoot, move around, and have zombies automatically spawn and come towards us. This episode you have a health bar, you can fire, destroy enemies, and it counts the cash that you have. We'll use the cash in a later episode to maybe add some extra powers and some specialties for this player, and if you get hit, you lose health, and it shows you how long you survived. If you guys have enjoyed these videos, please feel free to like or subscribe. Leave a comment at the bottom of the page. I'd really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have a way that we can count the number of zombies that we destroy, and we'll get a score and we'll get money from it. And later on in the next video, we'll use that money to make some upgrades and do some different things. But first, here we're going to create our counter. So we can just call it a counter. And our counter is going to need to be created. It's going to be a Greenfoot image. And so we're going to need to set the image to a new Greenfoot image. And we're going to create our own Greenfoot image. And so there's a few options with Greenfoot images, but the one we're going to do is we're going to do a string, then font size, and then a foreground color, and then a background color. And this is not completed by any means yet, but so our score will be right here. And we're going to need to add a variable score that we will hold on to. And that's what we'll have first, and font at 40 is fine. This will be the foreground color. And so we can just do color.black. In our background color, we're going to have to create a new color. And with a new color, you can choose the RGB, but if you create a fourth integer in that parameter, this last one represents transparency. And so if we have it at 0, that will give us a clear background. So it really doesn't matter what you're putting in there necessarily in the colors, because we're going to make it transparent. Okay, so we have that. It doesn't know what score is, so we're going to need to give it a score in the score. Okay, so our counter, if we add it in, we have it, score. Now, where are we going to add this counter in? Well, we can do score or counter equals new counter, but we are going to be accessing it outside of the world, so we're going to need to create it outside of the world, initialize it outside of it, so new counter. And then we're going to add object counter at, let's do 130, 100. Okay, now our counter will stay here. It's out of the way so we can see the zombies coming in, and it's see-through, so we'll see them coming underneath it. And now we have our score counter visible. But what we need is to be able to use the counter and access the score from other places in your code. So we need to say when the zombie is hit by the projectile, we lose health, but for the zombie we'll lose health, but our score will need to go up. And so the first thing I'm going to do is switch health of the zombies to 1. You can mess around with it and see what works best for you, but we are going to have our counter.score ++ of sorts, but the zombie cannot see the counter. So what we need to do is go into zombie and make the zombie able to see the counter. Okay, so right now the zombie can see the main player, but it also needs to be able to see the counter, and we can call it counter. Okay, and not only that, we need to be able to store that counter so our zombie can see it throughout the entire class, not just in this constructor. Okay, so we can do this dot counter equals counter. So that means this instance of zombie that we've created this variable for counter for the instance of zombie, and that will be this dot counter. So this dot counter equals this counter up here. So now we actually aren't going to do it here because this is just when you hit it once, and we don't want to count every time that we hit it. We're going to score when we remove the zombie from the world. Okay, so you need curly brackets there, and then you do counter dot score plus plus, like I was showing you earlier. That will access the counter class and add to the score variable in the counter class. And so now in our my world, since we added a parameter for counter, so our counter, not for our counter, for our zombie, we've added a counter parameter. It's expecting a reference to the counter that we're talking about to also be in the parameter of the zombies that we've added here. Okay, so do copy, paste. So that means every zombie will be able to see the main player and also see the counter. Okay, and then our counter has a score that's right now it's only getting updated while it's in the constructor, so right when it gets added in. We want it when it's being played, the score counter needs to add up and continuing to change. Okay, so we need to add that in there, and then now when we run it, our score counter is working for us. Okay, so you can mess around with that, but then now we want to also add money, and so that we don't just get a score added up, but we also get money for it, because we'll use that money later on to be able to buy certain specialty. Okay, and so int money, you can do a plus and /n. That gets us to a new line. Okay, and then we can do within that your cash colon space and then close that parentheses. Then we can add money to that. Okay, and then now we will both have money getting shown. Now our money won't add up quite yet, and our score getting shown. And if you can on your own, I would pause it and try to put your own way to add five gold or 5 cash every time that you destroy an enemy. But I'm going to show you right here. So now we have our counter that we can access, and so really all we need to do is do counter dot money. We can do a plus equals 5. So that will add 5 to our money and set it equal to 5 more than it was previously. So it'll start at 0, then 5, 10, 15. And now we have our score and we have our cash. And our cash goes up by 5. Our score goes up by 1. So now we want to create a health bar. Okay, and so we're going to create a new class, health bar. And I've capitalized the H and the B. Just be aware of however you do it. That's the best way to do it because they're 2 different words. You want to capitalize each word. Public health bar. Constructor for it. And we need to build our health bar. And similar to how we built our player, we're going to build a box for our health bar and make it wider than it is tall and make it a rectangle. And then we're going to lower our health as we go. So in order to do that, we need to set the image to a new Greenfoot image again. But our new Greenfoot image will be the transparent box that we've done before. And so we will make it wide. I'm going to make it 52 wide and 12 tall. And really it's going to be 50 wide and 10 tall. But with that, we want to make sure that there is 1 pixel around the edge for our line that's drawn, our outline, and we're going to have that in black. And then we're going to have our actual rectangle filled, the health bar filled in red. And so we're going to do get image dot draw rectangle, and we will draw the rectangle starting at 0, 0, and it will go to 52, 12. And then we're going to get image dot set a new color because we're going to change it to red to fill it. It defaults to black, and so we're going to set our color to color.red. Then we're going to get image dot fill rectangle, and we're going to start the fill at 1, 1, and then we're going to end the fill at 50, 10. And that will give us the space at 0, 0 where it starts will be 1 pixel, and then the fill will start at 1. So this actually needs to change from 52 and 12 because it's 0 to 52. That would be 53 wide and 12 and 13 tall. This actually needs to change to 1, 51, and 11. So then it's the outside is from 0 to 51, which would be 52 total, and 0 to 11, which would be 12 total. And then we will have our health bar built correctly. Okay, and then now that we have it built correctly, we're going to need to have this fill be able to change, because we're not going to always have a full health bar. This X value needs to be able to change. It'll always be fill the height, so the 10 will always be full, but we want it to lower down, going down across our health bar. So we can do health equals our 50 that we have, and we can change this value here to health. Okay, and then now we just need to figure out how we can get our health to go down. But we also are wanting this to be active throughout our code, and so we will also add this into the act method, similar to how we added in the counter that same way. Okay, and now we just need to lower this variable health, and that will lower our value, and we're going to test that right here to make sure that we have that correctly. So when we add in our health bar and we run it, yes, it lowers correctly. So that's exactly what we want to have happen, but we just need to have it happen when we get hit by the zombies. Okay, so our player, you lose if it's touching zombie. We are not going to lose from that anymore. So we're going to take that out. And we are going to actually make it so that this is a Boolean return type. And so these void return types means they're just instructions, commands. Nothing's getting returned when you make this method. But if you change it to a data type, a Boolean, you lose will return true or false, but we're actually going to just change the name of it to hit by zombie, and that will return a true or false, and this needs to be able to be changed in the act method, hit by zombie. Okay, and then so if we're touching the zombie, and actually instead of is touching, we are going to similar to how we did our projectiles, we're going to have actor zombie equals get one object at offset. And so what this will do, let me double check what it expects here for get one object at offset. So it expects 2 integers and then the class that you are getting at the offset. So what that means is that when the zombie class is directly on top of the player, so the offset is 0, 0, which is right in the center. So if any part of the zombie is touching the center of the player, we are going to have, instead of is touching, similar to our projectile, we're going to ask if that is not equal to nothing, or there is something that is at the offset. If there's something not equal to null, means something is of the zombie class at the offset 0, 0 of the player, so right on top of the player. So if there's something on top of the player of the zombie class, that will read as not equal to null, so we will say return true, and then else, otherwise, we just want to return false. Okay, so we don't want to make it too complicated. Okay, so now somehow we're going to have to access hit by zombie in the player class and access it in the health bar. So our health bar is going to have to access if there's a zombie that is on top of the player. So in order to do that, we're going to have to do something new. So we're going to have our health bar be able to go and into the my world and access the main player, the player that we're referencing here. So in order to do that, we're going to need to do what we call a getter method, which we have done in some other tutorials, but not recently. But we will do public player get player. Now, if you have not noticed, there is a lot of get in just programming in general. And so if we are trying to add an object or something, we can get world, and that'll get the code in our world class. And we're going to do something very similar to that with this get player. Okay, so if you are outside of the class and you want to reference something from the player class, you can create a method that will, so just like the Boolean return type, this is a player return type, an object return type. So we're returning an object of player, and we're getting the player from our world class. And so we are going to return player, and not just any player, we're going to return our main player. So now when we go into and use our counter, we can access the main, when we create our health bar, when we have our health bar, we can access, once we learn how to access the world class, which I will show you, we will be able to access the counter as well. So we're going to do public void lose health, and we are going to do concatenating, which we talked about in a previous part of this zombie survivor. It makes it so that something else, some class or object, turns into another class or object. So we're going to do world, my world equals get world. So that will access, it will set your my world value as a get world, so it'll be able to access the world like we've done with our get player and other things. And then we're going to turn this into this, what was a world, this my world. We'll just call this world. Okay, so we're going to turn this lowercase world into a my world, and the reason we're doing that is because it was just a world, but we want to access the my world. So we're going to access the world, which will allow us to concatenate that into specifically the subclass my world. And so my world equals, and if you use these parentheses, you can concatenate my world class. So we're going to turn this world class into a parentheses my world, and you do that by just grabbing that variable world and putting parentheses and concatenating it into my world. Similarly, if you did int health and you wanted to turn health into a decimal, you could do double specific health, and this is just an example, you guys don't have to do this. So you could do double specific health equals double, even though health is an integer, you can concatenate it and make it into a double value. And you can do that pretty much whenever in your code, depending on what your application for it is. But that's what we've done here. We've turned what was just the world, which we're able to access to get the world, and we've turned it into a my world reference. So we're able to use this as the my world subclass that we've created up here. Okay, and so now whenever we say my world dot, now we can access our player. So we can do the get player from our my world, and on our my world, our get player method is right there, and that returns a main player. So now that we've returned main player, we can do dot main player dot hit by zombie. But we're going to need to say this in an if statement. So if my world dot get player dot hit by zombie, you could do equals true, but you don't have to do that because it knows if there's no exclamation point, then that means it's true. And if there is one, that would be false for Boolean return types. And so it knows that this means that hit by zombie is true. Okay, and so if that's the case, we're going to take the health that we already have in here, and we're going to minus minus. Then now we need to add lose health into our act method. And then we need to run it. We need to add in a health bar. We need to add the location of this health bar eventually. And when they're on top of us, we lose health. Okay, and so where are we adding this location to our health bar? So first, we need to be able to access the player once again. So now that we have this my world get player, we can add that in where we would like. And so we can go back into my world. We're going to need to add a health bar. So add object, and we might as well make it available so we can see it. So we're going to add health bar equals new health bar. And we can say we want our health bar to be added in at our main player.getX and our main player.getY, and we'll minus 50. And since there's a projectile and a weapon that the main player has, that throws off where they are on the X value. So if you do about minus 5, it will, semicolon, it will, the health bar, not only above it, but more into the center of where the player is. Now, this is just when we add it in, so we need in our health bar to also constantly be setting the location of the health bar, and we need to set the location of the health bar to our getPlayer.getX, which we have down here. Okay, but we also need to add this code in once again, so I'm just going to copy this and paste it, and then I'm going to do my world.getPlayer. That'll access the player that the main player we're talking about, and we'll get the X value, and then my world.getPlayer.getY minus 20. We want to make sure we do minus 5 for the other one so that they are even. So get X minus 5. And then now, as we move around the world, okay, so I think I did minus 20. I think I did minus 50. So now when we start, and the health bar will move around and follow us where we go. Okay, and if we run into a player, we will lose health. Okay, and so now we need to lose the game if health is less than or equal to 0. We are going to get world.add object. And so if you notice, we can't do get world over and over again for like the get player, because we're not accessing just the any of the methods that are in our get world are just our world. We are only accessing methods that are in our my world. Okay, so not our get world, but our my world. And so that's why we had to do this, to be able to access our my world, not just our get world method. Okay, so get world.add object, we can just do show text like we did before, but if you want to create a new Greenfoot image of a you lose screen, you can, or add a class for you lose and add in an object, an image that is you lose, but I'm going to say you lose, and I think I had that in our player class prior, but you lose, and then we're going to add in next line. So you lose, next line, you survived 4, and we're going to add the time of our player. So my world dot get player dot time. We have our time variable for our player, if you remember from last time, and so that's going to constantly be added up, and then we can take that and divide that by 60, put that in parentheses, and so at 60 frames per second, your time divided by 60 will be the number of seconds that you survived for that much, and then space seconds. Okay, and then you can do comma. Where is it going to be located? Well, we can do get world dot get x divided by 2, get world dot get height divided by 2. Okay, so I forgot the plus there, so you need to add this value and make it a string. So when you're concatenating different data types of a string, integer to a string, you just need a plus to the string to make it turn into a string as well. Get world dot, not get x, get width, and get world dot get height. All right, now compiled, we run in to a player, and we lose health. All right, you survive, you lose, you survive for 8, 9, 10 seconds, so we need to stop the game after that. Okay, so we just add in our Greenfoot.stop. We add a curly bracket because it's more than one command line. We add in a curly bracket when there's more than one. Block off the code, and now we get hit, you lose, we survive for 4 seconds. So now you have a health bar, you can fire, destroy enemies, and it counts the cash that you have. We'll use the cash in a later episode to maybe add some extra powers and some specialties for this player, and if you get hit, you lose health, and it shows you how long you survived. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching another episode of Crow's programming course. This is Zombie Survivor Part 3. Please feel free to like or subscribe at the bottom of the page, and we'll continue on Zombies Part 4 at a later date. Thanks, guys. See ya.